I'm here at the Four Seasons Denver at our Digital Healthcare and Patient Experience Transformation Assembly. I have a very exciting group here. I have our academics on site from Fordham University's Gabelli School of Business, Don Lerman and Falguni Sen. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
This is really exciting to be sitting down with both of you. Dawn, you come from the marketing side, and Falguni, you come from the healthcare side. And together you're working on some really interesting research right now about leveraging language to impact the patient experience. So tell us a little bit about this, how this came about, and kind of the angles that you're both approaching it from.
Sure. So as a marketing professor and also as the executive director for the Center for Positive Marketing, I do a lot of work around how to ensure that marketing is a positive force for consumers, for society, and so on. One of my prime areas is the role that language plays in the customer experience. And that was something that we thought was an unexplored area, or underexplored, perhaps I should say, in the healthcare space.
Great.
As you know, Kara, over the last couple of years, patient-centeredness has become key to the healthcare industry. And along with that has come the various tools and the ways of looking at and understanding patient satisfaction, their engagement, and various other things that marketing folks have done for a long time, but with an industry that's been very, very different from the healthcare industry. So what Dawn and I did was that when we were talking about this and we saw how a number of marketing tools were being used in the healthcare industry, we weren't very sure that they were all being focused to the nuances of the industry appropriately. So we got together and we came up with a large number of questions that we wanted to address. And our project on language is actually the very first one that we are looking at, to try and see whether the use of language, what difference does it make for patient-centeredness or customer-centeredness, as we are talking about it in healthcare these days, as well as patient engagement. So that's our agenda.
That's great. So Dawn, you're an expert in the field of language, as you said, and marketing, and you have a book that you co-authored, The Language of Branding. So have you always had an interest in healthcare? And to follow up on that, is it a different ballgame working in this space?
So that's an interesting question. Have I long had an interest? I have not long had an interest in healthcare specifically, but I've always been very interested in how marketing concepts and tools can be applied in various industries. And if we look at the importance of healthcare as an industry, and also the focus on the patient, on the person, on the human, that is always something that has been interesting to me.
It makes a lot of sense to bring it all together. And then Falguni, as head of the Global Innovation Management Center at Fordham, you obviously know and you see firsthand the speed at which digital transformation is taking place. So how do executives keep up? What do they need to do to be staying ahead of the curve?
A number of things. It's very, if I may use the word seductive, to take tools from other industries and just directly start applying them. It seems to be an easy way for the healthcare professionals to move into the digital area, or even into adopting marketing concepts into healthcare, because the solutions seem to be ready-made and available. So one could argue that all they need to do is to talk to good marketers and learn those tools, and it's a training issue, but actually it is not. What it is that the flow, the workflow, and what goes into the workflow is so different, and what creates legitimacy to certain stories or narratives or language in the healthcare industry is so different that you have to really start from scratch. And you have to really look at what it is you want to do, what are the assumptions that marketing works under to be able to move in that direction. What attracted me about working with Dawn and her center was that her center is called Center for Positive Marketing. And she really looks at how the language of marketing is used to communicate specific nuances that are positive outcomes that take place within an industry. That's perfect. So what executives really need to do is to go into basics, understand what positive marketing is all about, what it is trying to communicate, and then work on that, and then look for tools and adopt them and adapt them as appropriate.
It's back to the basics.
Back to the basics. Yes.
So it's a really unique opportunity that you get to present this research to our C-suite executives, CMOs from the provider networks, as well as CNOs and CXOs from those networks as well. So what are you hoping to gain from sharing your work with these folks?
Exactly, actually, what I just said. What I'm really hoping, and this one is focused just on language, which, as you know, is only one aspect of the entire gamut of marketing tools and capabilities that are coming into the healthcare industry, from branding into everything else. And in this particular session, Don's expertise on language and branding, and I'm hoping that our executives will begin to understand that language matters, will begin to understand that specific styles in which things are communicated actually has an impact on a number of patient-centered outcomes, such as adherence to therapeutic plans, such as trust. So all of those things are key to what our industry, the healthcare industry, really needs right now. And we're hoping that there will be some takeaways from them as to understanding the importance and where to go in the next step forward as they formulate their own plans where language is important.
I'll actually add to that. I would say that we'd also like to send the message that language matters not just in an organization's external communications, but internally. And in the case of what we'll be talking about today, in the development of the relationship between the doctor and the patient, and that the language tools that are used in marketing can be applied and do have the kind of impact that you were just describing, adherence and so on.
So this is more of a broad question. Happy for you both to take a stab at this one. We have very empowered patients at this point in the game, and we're obviously now heading into 2020. I'm sure there are going to be a ton of new things that are going to come up. So with this in mind, what does the future of healthcare or healthcare marketing look like?
So in terms of healthcare marketing, so one area that we've discussed rather extensively here is storytelling in marketing, and how that is becoming increasingly important. And that's an area where healthcare organizations have been focused on in their external communications. So going back to my earlier comment, but I think we're going to see more of that throughout the organization, and in the interaction with the patient one-on-one, as opposed to just marketing a particular hospital or provider.
And from the patient side, it's a challenge that I think we pose to the advances that are taking place in marketing itself, especially consumer wearables and the types of data that are generated by the patients themselves. There is still a need for personal touch in healthcare. Much more so because we're talking about lives of people and major changes that are going to happen in their lives. To the extent that that personal touch remains important, we will have to figure out a way where the empowerment of the patient is guided through engagement in a decision-making process. What that will require, however, is the physicians to buy in a lot into understanding how the physician-patient dynamics is going to work, almost towards joint decision-making. That's a challenge. If we can actually do that, then a lot of the changes that are taking place with patient empowerment through information and data, through Google searches and various other kinds of things, is actually going to move into a very positive direction.
So you've both now been to the Millennium Alliance assemblies multiple times, and we're very happy to have you back. And as academics, you obviously are very well versed in these types of programs where peer-to-peer learning is really the key and the sweet spot for attendees. So what are some of the benefits of continued learning, especially in a small, intimate environment like this at the Millennium Alliance?
So what struck me most, and what I find very encouraging when I come to these events here, is how the industry is moving forward, but everyone has different experiences based upon the way their particular company or their particular provider space and their particular patient population is structured. So when we look at that, the amount of sharing that they can do about what are some of the success stories, what are some of the nuances that you've got to be careful about, and do not fall into the following pitfalls. So from the practical side, it's extraordinary what the peer-to-peer learning is there. To the extent that the industry has not matured and is not likely to do so in a while, this will continue to remain a major learning opportunity for people in this field.
The smaller nature of this kind of program it does exactly what you're describing. It also provides an opportunity to discuss and debate best practices, and it's much easier to bring that back to your organization when you can go into the kind of depth that you can go into in a smaller kind of event. I also really appreciate the interaction that happens here between academia and industry. I'm a strong believer in building bridges there. We can learn a lot from each other, and that just provides that much more value to the best practices that are discussed.
Great. Well, we're so happy again to have you back. We're looking forward to hearing how your session goes later today, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kara.